welcome back to another episode of Retirement with Louie. All right, this is not my typical silver and gold collecting video. This is for those people that are thinking about retirement. Maybe you're close to it. Maybe you've got many, many years to go. But I'm going to cover one topic today that I have found to be probably one of the most important aspects of getting ready for retirement, and that is your home. All right, you will have either rental or mortgage expenses, and that will be, if you have either of those two things, that will clearly be the most significant part of your retirement expenses. And one of the things that I have learned as I've been preparing, I'm about a year away from retirement, and one of the mistakes that I have made is that I have not paid off my home. Of course, if you watch Dave Ramsey, he really recommends working on that as the last of his steps to basically prepare yourself for a better retirement. But let me tell you what goes wrong when you haven't paid off your home. And this may be obvious to some people, but maybe not obvious if you're not focused on it. And I'm hoping that you have more time to deal with paying off your home than I have. I still have a mortgage going into retirement. Of course, I live on the West Coast, and I'm never leaving. I'm not leaving the West Coast. I love it here, and this is where I'm going to stay. But let's put that aside for a minute. That's partly why I have a mortgage. Because the homes are very, very expensive. Hopefully, you live somewhere that you love and the homes aren't as expensive here, and you have a shot at paying off your mortgage. Now, why do you want to do that? Actually, my mortgage right now is at 2 1/8 interest rate, which I was able to refinance a year or two ago. I forget. It was, I caught the very bottom of the refinance. So my mortgage payment is like 80% principal. I'm also on a 15-year payoff, which may have also been a mistake. I'll cover that in a minute. But the problem with carrying a mortgage into retirement is that you'll have to fund that mortgage payment. And what that does is that increases the need for cash, living expenses. What happens when you draw more money out of your IRA, 401k, 403b, etc., is that it's going to put you in a higher tax bracket. So by not paying off your mortgage before you get to retirement, whether that's 62 years old, 66 years old, even 70 years old in some cases, you basically increase your need for cash, and you're going to increase your taxes. You're also going to reduce some of the state-sponsored discounts that you can get for insurance, depending on whether you're Medicare eligible or not. So this is what makes it kind of a tactical error not to pay off your mortgage, because you've increased your tax rate due to pushing yourself into higher brackets as you withdraw more money. And most people can't live entirely on their Social Security, which has tax benefits. But when you're pulling out of your 401k, you're going to pay full income tax at whatever the highest bracket is. And that is the gist of what I'm talking about. So let's go back to what some of my mistakes were. Well, I really didn't focus on paying off my mortgage. I focused on many things, building my 401k, for example. Put as much as I could into the 401k. Again, this is outside of the 10 to 15% that I recommend you keep in precious metals, which is insurance against a devaluing dollar, and possibly an insurance policy against total chaos. But back to what I did wrong. I always thought that the best thing you could do would be to invest into your 401k. And of course, that reduces your tax income in the year that you do it. But really, what I should have been doing is putting more money against the mortgage and a little less into the 401k, because paying that off will set you up for retirement, a very comfortable retirement. Many people that don't have a mortgage in retirement can live on much less than those of us that do. But of course, I always thought that the returns in the stock market or the bond market would exceed, what I would save on my mortgage. But I was doing this even when I was paying 6%, 5% interest on my large home. I was still putting it into the 401k. And for some of those years, I didn't always have it invested properly, so it didn't even make enough to cover what I would have saved on the mortgage. And then there were tax write-offs, but the politicians have been playing games with the tax write-off. And if you counted on that, well, now it could be that your standard deduction could be greater than your tax write-off for mortgage interest anyway. So I wish that I had started paying my home off sooner. The other thing that I learned about 10 years ago is that you really don't want to be in more house than you can afford or more house than you need. And of course, I lived most of my life thinking that a bigger house would provide higher appreciation and it would be a good investment for the future. And that worked for about 3 decades, and I was able to increase the equity in my ever larger and larger home. And then came the decade that it didn't work. And we are setting up for probably a repeat of something like that, maybe not that catastrophic. And I'm talking about the 2008 financial crisis. I saw my expensive home on the West Coast drop 50% in value. Actually, the value of the home was less than my mortgage at one point. That's how leveraged I was. Well, I learned very quickly that having more home than you need is a great deal of risk. And, had I been 30 or 40, that possibly could have turned out better. But as you get into your 50s and your 60s, you really don't want the risk to outweigh the size of your retirement or the money you have in retirement. And fortunately, that home, we rode that out, and the home went back up, and then we sold it, and we went into something more modest, something on a bigger piece of land, has some self-sustaining qualities to it. It's away from, the ravaging hordes, and it is somewhat protectable and tucked away. Although there are expenses associated with larger properties, such as water here on the West Coast. But the home itself is modest. It has everything we need. It also had the advantage of having a granny flat. And keep in mind, this home was about 60% of the value of the home that we sold. So we were able to put a greater down payment, but not big enough to get her paid off. The granny flat is an income producing option, and if you can find something like that, I highly recommend it. Actually, the rent on the granny flat would cover a big piece of our mortgage if we ever chose to rent it out. But right now, we're going to have family living in it. So you can also, with an extended family, having a granny flat can provide so many benefits, especially to your kids if they're having trouble making it due to the cost of living. But the more modest home is everything we need going forward. The taxes are lower. The mortgage would be lower if I hadn't put it on a 15-year plan. I thought a couple years ago when I set this up and I got the 2 1/8 mortgage, I thought, gotta pay this off fast, man. And I really thought that I could make a bigger dent than I can. But then my wife retired at 62. Our income dropped, and I was not able to to pay it down as fast as I wanted to. I put it on the 15-year mortgage that actually dropped the interest rate, I don't know, 1/8 or 1/4 of a point, but it raised the payments so much that now going into retirement, and probably for 12 years into retirement, unless I get lucky somehow, the payment is higher than it would have been had I left it on a 30-year. And I'm regretting that move as well. I thought that was the best thing we could do is, work to get it off paid quickly. But actually, the better scenario is to have your payment lower, and then you don't need to draw as much money out of your 401k when you start taking distributions. So that was the second mistake that I made. But these are some ideas I'm giving you if you're thinking about your home, and if you don't think you can pay it off, well, I could have had a home paid off probably 15 years ago if I hadn't kept going to more and more expensive homes, trading up. The whole concept of trading up is kind of an American phenomenon, and not everybody does it. Not everybody feels it's necessary, but if you're living a higher lifestyle, moving up to a nicer house, a nicer neighborhood. Maybe you put in a nice expensive pool like I did. There's landscaping for new homes, etc. It feels good. Of course, it also decreases the percentage of equity that you have in your home, increases your mortgage payment, and then increases your risk if the market should turn down. If you're in that kind of a situation and you are getting close to retirement or even 10 years away from retirement, I really hope you'll take a look at your leverage on your home. And home prices are coming down a bit, but I don't think they've come down as much as they're going to. And of course, there is the option to sell your home and rent for a period of time and wait for prices to come down. That doesn't always work because, it just doesn't always work. But I believe the economy is headed into recession, and I believe the higher interest rates are dampening the housing market. If anything, your home is it's probably going to cost you money, right? Because there's going to be repairs. The cost of that is going up and up every year. In some states, taxes go up every year. The one benefit that the West Coast here has is Prop 13, and our taxes do not go up, only fractionally. And that's partly why the houses are so much more expensive, because the politicians have not chosen to ever increase the cost of your property taxes. That is my thought on homes. If you can get into something more modest, maybe it's a little bit further from the office, maybe you work from home, maybe it's a little bit more rural, it's a great time to trade out of the albatross that you might have around your neck and look to the future to deleverage. Just some thoughts from your pal Louie. I hope you have a wonderful retirement, and I hope your planning for it treats you well. This is not financial advice. I am not a financial planner, not even close to it. I'm just sharing my lessons learned as someone who is a year away from retirement, looking forward to it, but also regretting some of the things that I've done. You guys take care now, and I'll see you on the next episode. Bye.